The sky was heavy with clouds, dark and threatening, as if the heavens themselves mourned my fate. Every torch in the castle courtyard flickered, trembling in the wind, reflecting the unease that had settled in my chest. Princess Alara, once cherished by the court, once the supposed pride of my father's reign, stood accused of being nothing. Worthless. Weak. Human in a kingdom that had long prized power over heart. The council had gathered, a circle of whispers and gleaming eyes, their judgment hanging like a guillotine above me. I could feel their expectation that I would bow my head, that I would weep quietly and disappear. But my heart thudded in my ribs with a different rhythm, defiance. By order of the council, the herald's voice rang out, brittle and unyielding, Princess Alara of the Eastern Line is stripped of her claim and sent to the northern fortress of the Wolf King. She shall remain there, apart from crown and court, until further notice. The words cut sharper than any blade. My father, seated upon his gilded throne, did not look at me. He did not rise. His silence was approval, more cruel than any insult. My mother's portrait stared down from the walls, her eyes painted with warmth and light, a silent reminder of what I had lost in life and what the court had stripped from me in seconds. Before we dive deeper, hit like and subscribe, and comment where you are listening from, because this is where my journey begins, cast out and unknown, yet far from powerless. The nobles gasped, muttered behind their fans, and looked at one another with satisfaction. None of them had ever wanted me here. Too soft. Too unremarkable. Too human. The court's greatest sin, they believed, was allowing a fragile girl to exist among monsters. The guards approached. No chains. No harsh words. Just a nod, a ceremonial gesture of authority that barely masked their pity. I was to leave immediately. They were escorting me north, to a fortress whispered about with fear, a domain of wolves, of alpha warriors, and of a king who had not been seen in decades, whose power and cruelty had become legend. Few sent their return unchanged. Fewer returned at all. I pulled my cloak tighter around my shoulders, trying to stave off the chill that was not just of winter but of destiny. Every mile toward the north fortress felt heavier. The wind cut through the trees, carrying with it the scent of pine, cold earth, and something wilder, something alive, waiting. My father did not walk with me. He did not offer a word of comfort or a glance of regret. I could hear him in my mind, saying nothing. His absence was louder than any command. Betrayal, I realized, could be as quiet as it was devastating. The carriage rattled over frost-hardened paths, and I pressed my hands against my knees. My fingers were pale, human, ordinary. And yet, I clung to them because they were mine, the only thing truly mine in a world that had already decided I was nothing. The villages we passed seemed to recognize me, or perhaps it was only the concept of me, a human among shifters. Their eyes followed me, sharp, analyzing. Fear. Curiosity. Contempt. Human. Weak. Prey. The realization only hardened the ember in my chest. They thought I was powerless. They thought I was irrelevant. They were wrong. By the time the northern fortress came into view, dark as a blade thrust from the mountains, I realized that fear itself could be a compass. The Wolf King's domain was vast, untamed, alive. The air smelled of raw earth and predators. My pulse quickened not with terror but with anticipation. The exile was only the beginning. Inside me, a flicker stirred, one that had been quiet my whole life. A fire I had not known I possessed, something beyond claws, beyond magic, beyond the court's shallow measures of worth. It whispered that what they sent me toward was not my doom but my destiny. That in this land of wolves, the human girl who had been deemed worthless might become something far greater than any crown or court could contain. The gates loomed before the carriage, black and towering, flanked by massive stone walls that seemed to absorb the light. The Alpha waited inside, a king whose reputation was etched in terror and respect alike. They believed I was weak. They did not know the strength that patience and suffering had forged. And so, I stepped forward. The exile had begun, but the awakening was only just. The morning after felt like my body had been stitched together with jagged thread. Every breath burned, every step reminded me of the night before, and the memory of the hunt clung to me like smoke. I didn't want to face the others, but silence is a luxury the weak can't afford. So I pushed myself upright, shoulders heavy, bones aching, and walked into the clearing where the pack had gathered. Eyes turned. Some pitied me, most judged me. No one spoke. Wolves don't need to say the obvious, they can smell it, sense it, taste it in the air. My failure was as sharp as blood. And then, he appeared. The Alpha. His presence was a weight, pressing on every rib, every thought. He didn't even need to growl, his silence carried its own command. His eyes found mine, and I couldn't look away. They weren't just eyes, they were storms, gold and black swirling in a way that stripped me bare. Step forward, he said, voice low, almost casual, but I felt the command run through my spine like fire. I obeyed. My knees threatened to buckle, but I forced myself steady. He circled me once, slow, deliberate, the way a wolf circles prey it has already decided belongs to it. He said nothing at first, only studied me. And when he finally spoke again, the words cut deeper than any claw. You should be dead. The truth of it lodged in my chest. I had thought the same last night. I still wondered why I wasn't. But you're not, he continued, his voice dropping even lower, almost like he was speaking to himself. Which means the king will want to see you. The king. The name hung in the air, heavier than chains. Every wolf straightened at the mention, ears tilting, bodies tense. I wanted to ask why. I wanted to protest. But my throat was dry, my voice buried. The Alpha didn't wait for me to find it. He turned his back, already walking toward the ridge that led deeper into the territory. And like instinct, like some primal string pulling me, I followed. The forest grew darker as we moved, trees older, shadows thicker. My nerves screamed with every step, but the Alpha's pace was steady, unrelenting. He didn't glance back to see if I kept up. He knew I would. Wolves don't disobey their Alpha. Not if they want to live. Finally, the trees broke open into a wide hollow, and there he was. The Wolf King. He was nothing like I had imagined. I'd heard whispers of him my whole life, feral, ruthless, power incarnate. And he was all of that, yes. But he was also stillness. He sat like a statue carved out of shadow, his crown not of gold but of bone and antler, his gaze deeper than the forest itself. When his eyes lifted to me, I forgot how to breathe. The Alpha bowed his head but didn't speak. The king's attention didn't leave me, not for a heartbeat. So this is the survivor, he said at last, voice smooth, calm, but carrying an edge like a blade hidden under silk. I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell him I didn't survive, I barely existed. But my tongue stayed trapped. He rose, slow and deliberate, and stepped down from the throne of stone where he had been sitting. The ground seemed to shift with his weight, like even the earth bent under him. When he stood before me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, he leaned down ever so slightly, his lips near my ear. There's something in you, he whispered. Something even you don't know yet. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't being led to judgment. I was being claimed. The world outside the cave smelled like freedom, but it also carried the stench of danger. Every leaf, every gust of wind, every snapping twig seemed alive with unseen eyes watching me. I stepped carefully, barefoot on cold earth, my body still aching from the transformation I didn't understand, the scars of the Alpha's words still echoing inside me. I should have gone back. That's what the old me would have done, crawl, apologize, beg for scraps of mercy. But something had shifted. The fire that once burned only in my chest had spread through my veins, mixing with the wild blood of the wolf I hadn't asked for. I walked. Hours stretched like days. Hunger gnawed, thirst burned, but the silence in my head was louder than both. I kept replaying the moment, the Alpha's gaze, cold and dismissive, stripping me of worth with just a glance. And yet, behind that cruelty, I caught something else. A flicker. A hesitation. Maybe fear. Maybe recognition. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it wasn't the end. Not for me. By dusk, the forest turned darker, shadows long and sharp like blades. I found water, kneeling at a stream, my reflection rippling back at me. For a heartbeat, I saw her, the wolf. Yellow eyes, fierce and patient, waiting behind my own. I splashed the image away, but it clung to me. Then I heard it. A low growl. Not mine. I froze, lifting my head slowly. Across the stream, half hidden in the brush, a figure stood. Massive, broad-shouldered, with eyes that burned brighter than the moon above. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me like a predator deciding if the prey was worth the chase. I knew instantly, this wasn't any ordinary wolf. This was one of them. My chest tightened, but I forced myself not to flinch. My legs wanted to run, but my blood whispered stand. I held his gaze, my breath shallow, my heart pounding like war drums in my ears. And then, he spoke. His voice wasn't human, not fully. It was layered, like the echo of a storm. You don't belong here. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Maybe not. But I'm not leaving. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tense. You don't know what you're saying. Then explain it, I snapped before I could stop myself. My voice cracked, half fear, half fury. Because no one else has. The wolfman stepped closer, the earth trembling under his weight. The air thickened, charged, as if lightning itself bent around him. His presence swallowed mine, but still, I didn't bow. I couldn't. He leaned forward, eyes glinting. You're walking a path that ends in blood. I forced myself to breathe, to steady the fire inside me. Maybe. But at least it'll be my path. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not pity. Not anger. Something harder. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. Then, without another word, he vanished into the shadows, leaving the night colder than before. I stood there trembling, water dripping from my fingers, but I didn't collapse. Not this time. Because deep down, I knew, this was only the beginning. And the eyes of the Wolf King's court were already upon me. The council chamber was suffocating. Not because of the stone walls or the stale air, but because of the stares that pressed against my skin like knives. Every wolf, every elder, every enforcer of the pack sat there, watching me as though I was both an intruder and a curiosity. I stood in the center of the room, bare under their judgment, my wrists still marked with faint bruises from the shackles I had worn during my capture. My heart was a storm, pounding against my ribs, but I forced myself to keep my head high. If I bowed, if I bent, they would see weakness, and weakness was blood in the water. The Alpha sat at the head of the long stone table, his throne carved with the marks of generations before him. His eyes burned like embers in a dying fire, controlled, but ready to blaze. The Wolf King sat beside him, not speaking, but his presence filled the room like thunder before the strike. His silence was more dangerous than any words. The questioning began. "Who are you?" one elder demanded. His voice was brittle, sharp as bone. I told them my name. My voice didn't shake, though my hands clenched so tightly behind my back my nails dug crescents into my palms. "And why?" another asked. "Did the Alpha's enforcers find you near the border, trespassing on sacred land?" Sacred land. They called it that as if it belonged to them alone, as if the trees and rivers had not existed long before their laws were carved into stone. I was running, I said simply. From men who would see me dead. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Wolves didn't run. Wolves fought. Wolves bled. Wolves killed. The fact that I admitted to fleeing branded me as something other than them, something weaker. But the Alpha's eyes, he studied me not with disdain, but with a kind of calculated patience. He saw something. He was waiting. Running, an enforcer scoffed, or spying. The words spat into the air like poison. I felt it coil around me, ready to tighten, ready to strangle. "I have no pack," I said. No loyalty to any king, no purpose but survival. If you see a spy, then you are blind. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar. My words struck the air, and though my voice was steady, I could feel the chamber pulsing with hostility. The Wolf King leaned forward, finally breaking his silence. His voice was deep, slow, as though each word was dragged up from the roots of the earth. "And why?" he asked. "Should we let you live?" It wasn't just a question, it was a verdict. The weight of my life balanced on the answer. I swallowed hard, but I didn't break eye contact. "Because killing me won't silence me," I said. "Because I know things your enemies hide, things they would rather see buried. You can kill me now, or you can use me. But either way, I am not afraid to die here." The chamber erupted. Shouts, snarls, the scrape of claws against stone. Wolves bristled, some leaping to their feet, others slamming fists on the table. My words had split the chamber like a blade, half seeing arrogance, half seeing strategy. The Alpha raised his hand, and the chaos froze. His eyes locked on me. Not angry. Not doubtful. Just sharp. Cutting straight through every mask I tried to hold. And for the first time, I felt it, not their judgment, not their fear, but something else entirely. A pull. A bond stirring in my blood, ancient and unyielding. The Alpha felt it too. I saw the flicker in his eyes, the way his breath caught for just a moment. "Mate." The word screamed inside me, clawing at my chest. My soul knew it even if my mind refused to. But to admit it here, in front of them all, would be death. So I said nothing. I only held his gaze, praying he would do the same. The fortress is no longer the same place that swallowed me whole the day I first arrived. The torches still burn, the walls still stand cold and gray, but inside, everything has shifted. The whispers that once called me a curse now fall silent when I pass. Some bow their heads. Some lower their eyes. None dare speak against me, not anymore. But this isn't triumph. This is something far stranger. The Wolf King stands in the council chamber, his crown heavy on his brow, and yet his eyes never leave me. It's unnerving. His stare isn't the same cruel one that met me when I was dragged here. It's searching, waiting. Like he knows a truth that I have not yet accepted. The Alpha crown rests on a black velvet cushion in front of him. The silver band glints with threads of gold, carved with runes that shimmer faintly like living fire. It's more than metal. It's a burden of blood and legacy. And for the first time, I realize, it's not meant for him. It's meant for me. The realization strikes me like a blade. My chest tightens, breath shuddering. I don't want this. I never wanted this. I wanted freedom, safety, to escape my exile. I wanted to be nothing more than myself. And yet, the fortress, the wolves, the king, they've all bent around me like fate itself was dragging me here. The council shifts uneasily. Old men with fur-lined robes mutter, one gripping his staff as though it were a weapon. "She is not of our bloodline," one spits. "She carries no wolf's mark," another hisses. But the king silences them with one raised hand. His voice is steady, deep, final. Bloodlines are broken. Marks fade. But the Alpha crown chooses for itself. He looks at me again, and I see no hatred there, no cruelty. Only certainty. "You are the queen it has chosen." The words echo through the chamber, louder than the crack of thunder. I want to scream. I want to deny it. My whole body trembles, the weight of every cruel word, every scar of exile, pressing against my ribs. A queen? Me? The girl they cast out? The girl they said was cursed? But deep inside, something stirs. Something fierce. Something that has always been there, waiting for me to finally see it. I remember the wolves who circled me in the snow but never tore me apart. I remember the storm that should have killed me, but left me standing. I remember the way the fortress bent, shifted, responded to me like it already knew who I was. Maybe they were wrong all along. Maybe I was never cursed. maybe I was chosen. The Alpha crown glows brighter, its runes pulsing, as though sensing my thoughts. The council recoils, frightened. One whispers, it responds to her. The king steps closer, the crown in his hands. His voice softens, something I never thought I'd hear from him. Take it, he says. Not for me. Not for them. For yourself. My hand hovers above the silver band. The air hums, electric. Every instinct screams at me to run, to hide, to stay small. But I've spent too long being small. Too long believing their lies. I place the crown on my head. Heat floods through me, fire and ice all at once, burning, cleansing. My vision blurs, then sharpens. The runes ignite, casting light across the chamber like dawn breaking through storm clouds. Power surges in my veins, ancient and alive, as though the voices of every alpha before me sing in unison. The council bows their heads, not in defiance, not in reluctance. In recognition. The Wolf King drops to one knee. His head bows low, and the sight nearly shatters me. The man who once ruled over me, who once held my fate in his hands, kneels now at my feet. You are the true queen, he whispers. And in that moment, the fortress no longer feels like a prison. It feels like a throne. But thrones are not without their chains. The power burns in me, glorious and terrible, and I know the path ahead will not be easy. I will face challenges greater than exile, enemies older than this fortress, wars yet to be written. Yet for the first time, I do not tremble. I am no longer the banished girl. I am no longer the forgotten daughter. I am the queen. And the Alpha crown has found me.